Sejal Shibe from CyberFrat, and I welcome you all to the Wednesday Wisdom webinar on the topic Digital Identity, the new golden standard for secure access. So, Wednesday Wisdom is a webinar series that CyberFrat is doing with our association partner OneFed. With Wednesday Wisdom, we demonstrate the best of breed next gen technologies which enable your business to transform digitally, acquire compliance, and more importantly, mitigate the upcoming cybersecurity risks. So, for today's webinar, we have with us the solution expert partner, Block Armour. Block Armour is a Singapore, UK, and Mumbai based venture focused on harnessing blockchain and emerging technologies to counter growing cybersecurity challenges in bold new ways. Accelerated by Airbus BizLab, its secure Shield platform delivers comprehensive zero trust based security for enterprise systems, cloud, and IoT. And joining as our guest speaker is Mr. Ravi Vaz, Senior Solution Architect and Pre-Sales Heads from Block Armour. So Ravi brings along 22 plus years of cybersecurity experience with system integrators and OEMs architecting cybersecurity solutions to customers across industry verticals in India and around the world. His endeavor has always been to ensure that appropriate solutions are designed, which are easy to deploy and manage as they protect the current and future IT landscapes of the customer. So thank you, Ravi sir, for being here. Before we begin, a quick announcement that we will be having a Kahoot quiz based on the presentation, and 3 top winners of Kahoot gets a chance to win Amazon Kindle. So stay tuned till the end, and we will also be running a quick wheel of fortune for the people who fill the feedback form. And yes, so before, let me just invite Mr. Dushyant Parikh from OneFed to speak a few words. Thank you.
Thank you, Sejal. Thanks for the introduction, and welcome everyone on board. On this another episode of Wednesday Wisdom. As Sejal mentioned, we are doing CyberFrat and OneFed are doing in collaboration with the solution partners this series of Wednesday Wisdom. A very few quick words about OneFed. So we are a B2B cybersecurity marketplace wherein we aim, to bridge the gap between the emerging and niche or disruptive cybersecurity solutions and service providers and their customers. Because you might be aware of the very known or the big names in the industry, but there are many niche, emerging, and those who are really having disruptive and innovative solutions. So we try to bridge that gap and help our customers select best of the solution to meet the specific business requirements they may have in the cybersecurity domain. So with that, I would like to hand it over to Ravi from Block Armour to take us through today's discussion that as scheduled. You guys can reach out to OneFed on onefed.com or via CyberFrat, whatever you feel comfortable with. Okay. Thank you, everyone, and once again, welcome to all of you. And over to you, Ravi. Thanks, Ravi.
So thank you, Dushyant, Sejal, for this invite. Thank you, everyone, for joining in. Welcome. Good evening. We have a hopefully an interesting and an informative session for you today. Do let us know if you have any queries and questions. You can put it across, right? And at the end, perhaps we will try to answer these queries of yours, these questions of yours. Let's keep the discussion interactive. So let your questions keep coming in on the chat window. So Sejal, Dushyant, and I will collect them, and then in the end, after the presentation is over, or for us, if we can take some time in between, we will try to respond to these queries as swiftly as possible. So let me just share my screen to you, right, so that I can begin my presentation. So I hope my screen is visible.
Yes, Ravi.
Yes.
Yeah. So I begin my presentation. So before I begin, with a truth that we all know, right? Any enterprise. So when I say enterprise, doesn't mean an office or a business, etc. Any enterprise, right? The growth of any enterprise is always secured by trust. The person who's investing in the organization believes in himself or herself, trusts that we will be able to achieve the goals that we have set. When they acquire people, when they have people join them, they trust that the people will work along with them to achieve that goal, right? And it's always a matter of trust. When we buy IT systems, when we deploy IT systems, we have a trust that these IT systems will help us be productive, be efficient, and be able to respond to the market needs better, etc. So if you notice, any enterprise today will grow by trust, is secured by trust. And the foundation of trust is identity. Who is it that is working with me to achieve this goal, right? So personal identity, corporate identity, and identity is a construct, right, which is multi-layered. So we are always asked this question, who are you? Who am I, right? Whenever we answer this question, our answer is always relative. So if we are asked in a family scenario or in a school scenario, etc., we will say, so for example, I will say, I am Ravi Vaz. And then I will, in school, I would have said, I am a student of grade so-and-so. Today, I will tell you, I am Ravi Vaz and I work at Block Armour, right? So on and so forth. So identity is always a layered construct. What we always mistake is that our name is our identity. Our name is not our identity. Our name is only an identifier. It is one of the attributes of identity. So when we use IT in industry, very important to know that multiple attributes of identity will be used in different stages to secure the business, to secure the growth of that enterprise. So that leads me to our point of the day, digital identity, the standard for today's secure access requirements. 15 years ago, 20 years ago, when we talked about secure access, the terminology was different, the technology was different, the environment was different. Cloud was not even a dream. Virtualization was just being thought of. Software defined, nothing was there. Right? There was software, but everything circulated around hardware. So if you look at Sun Microsystems, a classic example, along with their hardware, they would give software, certain licenses of software free of charge, right? So the whole world 15 to 20 years ago was physical, right? Was built on appliances and systems and hardware, etc. Over time, we have seen that the environment has evolved. The same way, identity also has evolved. And if you look at the power of identity today, in real life, okay, in real life, IRL, as we use in today's terminology, our identity defines where we can go, what we can do, who we are. Right? For example, identity documents like the passport enable us to travel. Our Aadhaar card provides us identity for citizen services. When we go to office, we have a corporate ID card where we are recognized because of that ID card. Our corporate identity is recognized. In school, you will have an academic identity, etc. So each person has multi-facets of identity, which are used in different years or different ways, depending on the context. Today, we are going to limit ourselves to enterprise, to business, to work, right? To that context, and specifically to IT being used in business or IT being used in enterprise. Then how identity plays a very important role in business, in enabling IT, right? And in securing business and securing IT, and how that role is becoming stronger and stronger and more profound and more pronounced. So that is what we are going to discuss today. Earlier, if you remember, username and password was the only characteristic of an identity that was ever used for a person. That also to make sure that the right person is coming into the office and accessing systems. Subsequently, the growth happened into IDAM systems, etc. We said, okay, this person with this name and these credentials also has this role that he plays. So therefore, he has access to these applications. Then the whole concept came in. Not all people who use my applications are my employees. I will outsource work. I will have partners. I need federation. I need collaboration. So obviously, identity became a very important part to identify who is an internal employee, who is an outsourced employee, and what rights and privileges these two people should have. As industry progressed and e-commerce and other such cloud-based solutions came into being, we had a third set of people who now directly interfaced with us in organization. First, it was only employees and partners who were interfacing with applications. Now our consumers themselves interface with our applications, with our infrastructure. Now, they also obviously have their own set of identities, which need to be managed, which need to be monitored. Going forward, IoT is going to play a major role in a lot of industries. You already heard Reliance announced, Jio announced that 5G will come up in major cities in December or by Diwali perhaps, right? And by next year, they are planning to roll out across India. The moment IoT, IIoT comes in, 5G will become stronger because 5G gives that much of power, that much of bandwidth, that much of reach for these kind of smart devices, sensors, etc., to be used not only in home scenarios, but in enterprise scenarios as well. Offices, branches, factories, so many places where people cannot optimally perform. And finally, context comes in, right? Stateless, where API to API integration will happen, apps talk to apps, right? So that kind of communications that are going to happen, where again, identity will evolve because there are no longer people in this equation. So if you notice, till consumers, people were involved in that equation. The moment sensors, devices, IoT comes in, people are taken out of the equation. It's all automated, right? There are sensors, devices, robots, bots, so many other things who now need a digital identity. And then applications themselves will speak to each other. Now these applications themselves need identity. So you see, identity in IT has been evolving as we are progressing more and more towards a software-defined, distributed kind of a environment. What has also happened in the last 2 to 3 years has been that the IT landscape itself has changed. COVID obviously was a very big accelerator. Because of COVID, people had to, whether they liked it or not, work from home. Now that work from home has become a flexi working kind of a scenario. All those things have happened. Automation, less reliance on people. So IoT, sensors, devices, robotic process automation. So many changes have happened over the last few years, which have got accelerated. So if you look at 4 key changes that have happened. One, cloud. Software-defined networks are taking prominence, whether it is on-prem, whether it is in public cloud or private cloud, and it will never be 100%. It will always be a collaborative environment. It will always be a hybrid cloud environment. There will be some on-prem, there will be some on-prem private cloud, there will be public cloud, there will be private clouds in the public space, so many different things. But the cloud to cloud shift, the digital transformation is a reality. IoT is a reality, especially for manufacturing organizations, for government, smart city projects. Industry 4.0 is a very big standard that's coming up. The convergence of IoT, that is the OT network, and IT network. The convergence of it. Till now, we have kept it separate. We have air-gapped it because we were afraid of cross-pollination, cross-attacks, etc. Today, that is not a viable option. Cybersecurity regulations have increased over time. Compliances have increased over time because malware, ransomware, etc. attacks have increased over time. So obviously, on the other side, the defense mechanisms also come in place. And last, very importantly, work from home or hybrid working, flexi working, bring your own devices. So many different names or so many different faces of this phenomenon are all there. In all of this, what has increased is malware and ransomware attacks. Vulnerabilities have increased because what was a closed, isolated system is now distributed architecture. Because vulnerabilities have increased, everything has spread out, everything is software. Malware, ransomware, other such malicious actors have a bigger chance, a bigger surface area to attack. If you look at breaches that have happened, they're always increasing. The DDoS attacks, the breaches that are being reported now, that is even worse. First, they were happening, we didn't know, or we never reported. Now we have to report because of compliance reasons, etc. And those numbers are alarming. So what has changed on ground? So if you look what has changed on ground, fundamental changes have happened. Organizations are moving out from captive infrastructure. So locations where we defined. So when my dad went to work, okay, he said, I am going to work. So he went to a fixed location, did his work over there, and then came back. And then it was two different lives that he was leading. Today, that is not the case. Today, software-defined architecture means no longer reliance on captive infrastructure, because captive infrastructure is a burden, is a cost, especially for business organizations who are into manufacturing or into finance or into telecom, etc. Running IT is not their cup of tea or is not their core competence. So setting up islands or silos of captive infrastructure is a huge cost and a waste of resources. Leveraging on cloud or cloud as a service or shared service infrastructure, especially software-defined infrastructure, brings about a lot of benefit to organizations in terms of productivity, efficiency, and bottom line. Employee access has changed, like I've already told you. Earlier, everything was controlled because everything was in a particular set of locations. You knew people came there, they will work only from there. Today, unfortunately, because we have distributed the environment, enforcement of these policies and controls also have become distributed. So we have multiple pockets of security that have been implemented all around. No unified control. Multiple people are required to manage the same thing in different places. So if you have a cloud in Azure and you have a cloud in AWS, you have the same set of tools that you have put because of your security policy in AWS and in Azure, but both from separate vendors, obviously, because their technologies are different. And obviously, you need a new skill sets and learning, etc. And last, very importantly, OT. Till now, OT was always a protected, isolated, air-gapped network with minimum interaction. But today, with the arrival of 5G, with the arrival of integrated Wi-Fi systems, Bluetooth, Zigbee, right, OPCSA, OPCUA, so many different protocols that are there. Converged systems, IT, OT converged systems is a reality, what we call as Industry 4.0. See, OT systems and IoT systems in isolation are useless because they're collecting data, they're pumping data. But that data needs to be analyzed, needs to be processed, and decisions need to be taken. And those will always be taken on IT side. So it will always be a combination of the two. For example, in telco, we have the transmission network and we have the IT network. But they meet because both cannot exist without the other, both cannot survive without the other. So very important realization today, more and more automation means that IT systems and OT systems need to integrate in real time, not just in a single premises, but across cloud and across networks. So what is the scope that is available today for using identity in securing IT? Remember, I told you, identity, the journey of identity is evolving. What we have said already, we have distributed networks which are software defined. That is a primary reality today. What it would mean? It would mean that there is multi-cloud, there is hybrid cloud. There will be no customer, or there should not be any of your customer or any customer who leverages all his resources in one cloud. That is not cyber resilience. That's not good practice. If you are started up, if you're a startup, you're a scale up kind of an organization, you started up on one cloud, good. But the moment you scale, you have to move to a multi-cloud kind of an environment. And organizations that are driven by compliance or regulated by compliance would need to get into a hybrid cloud kind of an environment, whether they like it or not. A small little on-prem data center plus cloud as a combination will always be the end state. So your end state in India or worldwide would always be a hybrid cloud kind of an end state. You will have a data center, you will have a server room or something small, some infrastructure on your premises, plus you will leverage IaaS services on the cloud, PaaS services on the cloud, and SaaS services on the cloud. Everything is software defined. That's one reality. And identity will play a very important role. Who gets to access what resources, where, and when. And flexi working. Today they are outside, tomorrow they are inside. The people remain the same. Perhaps the laptop or desktop they are using also remains the same. What has only changed is their location. Their need for access to applications, their rights, their privileges, their roles, their function in the organization doesn't change. So in a software-defined reality, that is where identity will play a very important role. And I always mention converged IoT and IT. IoT networks, no people. So device identity becomes very important. The sensor of the device, you need to make sure it is a genuine device. It's not a rogue device. It's not tampered. And IT networks, you will have people and systems who are interfacing with these IoT systems. So if you look at it, what I've already told you is multi-cloud, hybrid cloud, flexi working. Everything today is variable when it comes to networking. Software-defined networking is dynamic. It is variable, constantly keeps changing. Building a security on something that is changing is a very bad practice. Unfortunately, for the last 15, 20 years, we had no choice. Our security solutions were built by networking vendors. Right? Networking tool providers typically built a network access security, network protection mechanisms, etc. So we had no choice. But today, Forrester, Gartner, all the major analysts are constantly pushing for this whole concept called identity first security. Why? Because identity is the only constant in a distributed environment. You do not change. Your role in the company doesn't change. The application that you want to access and work with doesn't change. What changes is where you are working from or when you are working, what time you are working. That's the only thing that changes. What we are visualizing here today is that because of these dynamics that have happened, traditional technology now leaves gaps or leaves holes which are exploited by malware and ransomware. We have such a distributed environment, multi-cloud, hybrid cloud, 5 or 6 different data centers, people spread out everywhere. We do not have a single attack surface. We have multiple attack surfaces that have been opened, and we need to protect each one of them. Putting point solutions doesn't help. We need something holistic. Too many point solutions, stitching them together, integrating them together, managing them becomes very complex. That is not core competence. Right? You need then to spend a lot of money on that. Right? Silos gives gaps. Gaps allows a leverage for people to move out. And last, more and more systems are exposed to the internet, so vulnerabilities are exposed, and more opportunities are available to the hackers. So one of the ways that people have tried to do today is try to use the same traditional tried and tested approach for distributed ecosystems. But problem is it becomes a bottleneck. Bring all your people connectivity into the data center, and from there you send wherever they need to go. Challenge is bottleneck, challenge is capability, performance, efficiency, all of that comes for a toss. So it becomes very difficult to manage a distributed ecosystem with a traditional centralized kind of an architecture. So if you look at your network today, any customer network that you have or your own network that you have, typically you will see 3 types of access that are normally there. LAN, that we call a LAN or WAN, internal network access, fixed locations. You have remote access, people working from home. So earlier it was 20% or 10% of people who were exceptions who were given remote access. Today it's the other way around. Right? Today almost 90% of people need to be given the secure remote access. And third, as more and more cloud gets adopted, cloud access also needs to be factored in as part of a network access strategy. Now, if you look at the traditional tools that have been available to us or which we use, NAC, I'll take brand names. I'm a techie person, so please don't sue me. Right? Cisco ICE, one of the leaders, Aruba, Force Scout. These are people who build NAC solutions for physical environments. Unfortunately, the problem is they are limited to that physical environment. They need a switch, they need 802.1x, etc., etc. They need another internal firewall also. You need DHCP as an environment to take care of it. So many different challenges are there just to deploy a network access control. Features are very good. You have to do a compliance check, a posture check before you allow a person access. But the way to do it is restricted, and it works only in your office lab or maybe in your branches. Try using it over VPN, over the internet. Try using it in a cloud. It will not work. Why? Because it's physical architecture, not built for cloud, not built for virtualized environments. VPN access, again, is another challenge. You ask any VPN vendor, give me encryption inside the network. They will say, sir, not our use case. We don't work on that use case. Our VPN interface is always outside the internet, facing outwards. VPN alone doesn't work. You need MFA, multi-factor authentication, etc., etc. A lot of other solutions are required. Again, it works only in a restricted environment. Now, with cloud, depending on the cloud service provider you are using, you have to take a technology that survives over there, works over there. And there are very rare chances that what you have already invested in your company, in your office, in your data center, physical data center, will work in the cloud. You have to buy new. You have to buy different. And it has to be primarily software. And integrating all of that makes a difficult paradigm for you. And last, manufacturing organizations who are trying to go for Industry 4.0, you cannot use any of these investments for IoT. Just think your regular antivirus, you're using McAfee, Symantec, Trend Micro, CrowdStrike, whichever. Try using that in IoT. That sensor is so small, you'll not be able to install it. Right? So that needs a separate infrastructure altogether. So like I said, legacy is the biggest problem. It was built, these technologies were built when cloud was a dream. Virtualization was just about starting up. Right? Application virtualization, client virtualization, those were the initial technologies that came up. Right? So using that for today's modern distributed architecture, etc., is like round hole, square cover. And one of the things that we have realized in the last year and a half of COVID is that ransomware and malware attack players now have realized this very important vector of distributed networking access, etc., which we have put it in a hurry. We've implemented it in a hurry to meet business requirements. They have started attacking there, exploiting architectural vulnerabilities. So VPN, IPsec VPN especially, is very flawed. It gives you tunnel access, gives you bridging capabilities. So any malware that passes through can go through and do lateral movement and infiltrate into your entire organization. So this is a challenge that is there. So what are analysts saying? One of the biggest things that analysts are pushing. So Forrester started it about 10 years ago. Identity first security. The concept of do not trust anyone explicitly, always validate, always verify. So if you look at it, identity first security is one of the center points that have been raised by Gartner. And the second point after that, machine identity is becoming a critical security capability. Almost every critical infrastructure today, it's SCADA networks, industry control networks, etc., especially in the critical systems, gas pipelines, engineering, manufacturing, etc., are machines, sentient machines, machines with some amount of CPU, memory, processing power, etc., and a certain amount of jobs that we have programmed them to do. So if they have been programmed, they can be reprogrammed. So that fear is always there that that machine can be replaced by a rogue and can cause havoc. You've seen some of these attacks in real life also, in some of these nation-led attacks in the Middle East. So this is something that we've always heard of, known with common sense. We never had technology at that time. Today, technologies are available which enable you to ensure that appropriate individual, the right individual, gets access to the right resources. So authorized user, authorized application at the right time and based on the person's role. So right role, right time. So everything is done based on policy-based access. For that, identity becomes very important. A managed and a monitored identity, no ad hoc business. If a person is being given access to critical applications, so SAP infrastructure, critical file server, RDP infrastructure, critical database application, whatever it is, if a person is being given access to that, that identity better be authorized. It cannot be ad hoc, right? It has to be a managed entity and monitored identity. It has to be managed and monitored. So in an enterprise scenario or a cloud scenario, two identities to be handled: user identity, device identity. Very important, right? Very important distinction. We have been focusing so much on user identity, single sign-on, password, multi-factor authentication, biometric, right? All these things have been done to secure the user identity. But where does the malware come from? Where does the ransomware come from? Device. If I misuse a device, if I use a wrong device, I've opened up a vector. My identity is true, but I'm using a maliciously configured device. So now, as an enterprise, I need to make sure. So when I say digital identity, I'm not only talking about the person who's connecting digitally, but also the device that that person is using, that endpoint, laptop, desktop, whatever device he's using to connect. I need to make sure that both of these pairs are authenticated, are authorized, and only then can I give access. Now, the problem becomes worse in IoT and IIoT. There is no person involved. So your single sign-on, multi-factor authentication, tokens, biometrics, everything goes for a toss. Nothing works. Now you need to find a digital identity mechanism for your device. That's another big challenge that you need to do. You need to identify a device. Remember, the device is small, processing power is little, so you have to manage with all of that, still be able to authenticate that device strongly before you allow access. Before, right? Very important, not after. Right? So for that, one of the approaches that people are giving is the approach of zero trust, right? Very important. Zero trust approach to cybersecurity. Zero trust is not only at the network level, etc. Zero trust is an architecture. It's a set of principles that needs to be followed across endpoint, network, application, and security monitoring domains. So across all these domains, there is a zero trust identity first approach. Need to know basis, just in time access, just enough access. All these terms come very clearly there. So what we have done, okay, so what we have done at Block Armour, we started about 5 years ago, right? We took the zero trust. Remember, I told you, zero trust is theory, is principle. First promulgated by Forrester 10 years ago, 11 years ago. Then slowly, people have tried to define, and NIST has written a very nice paper on defining these principles and making it practical. So what we did as a company, we took the zero trust principles and we made it practically possible to deploy these principles in today's software-defined network. How did we do that? We deployed a software-defined perimeter kind of an architecture. So zero trust network access principles married with a software-defined perimeter technology, and very uniquely, which nobody else has done till now in cybersecurity, we used a private permissioned blockchain as a key component for digital identity as part of this infrastructure that we've created. And all of this is a software. It is not a shared service. It is a software platform. That platform is dedicated for that customer. Not installed in my premises and offered as a service. I don't get any data. All data remains in customer network at all times. So very important. Authentication data, which is the control plane, and user data, which is the data plane. And merge that all together with RSA 4096-bit encryption. Almost military grade kind of encryption, which we use to ensure that communication that takes place once access has been granted. So the idea is zero trust network access, software defined perimeter, etc., and blockchain to make sure authenticated, authorized users and devices are accessing authenticated and authorized applications only. Done all of that in a secure point-to-point encrypted manner with the highest level of encryption. So tampering, man-in-the-middle attacks also are limited. So this is a kind of an architecture that we built, very flexible, where everything is software, delegated, distributed, we can use it to protect. The policy can be created centrally. Protection can happen decentralized manner, in a distributed manner, wherever your critical systems are, wherever your people are. So this is a simple solution that we did. So zero trust principles. Anyway, we will share this deck with you. I will not run through. The important principle of zero trust is common sense. We never did it because we didn't have the technology at that time. First, don't trust by default. Always verify. So first verify, then trust. So it could be the CEO of the company or a data entry operator. Before you give access, even one packet moves in into your network, before an IP address, etc., work happens, IP traffic moves out. Verify whether the person is genuine, device is genuine, require the policy is there, access has to be granted, yes, no, whatever. So this is very important. So this is something that we have created using zero trust. So zero trust typically has 5 concepts, right? Authenticate user and device. Access has to be precise. Don't just say, like VPN. Unfortunately, VPN is that way. It's on the other end of the firewall. Once you cross the firewall boundary, it doesn't really bother where you are going. That is the firewall's headache or the internal cyber security system's headache. We are very clear. Zero trust says no. Who is going, where that person is going, allow only that much access. Administrator needs an access to a server, give him access to only administration ports. Business user needs to access an application, give him access only to the application ports. So very precise micro-segmented access. And very importantly, take out that misconception that just because an application is inside, person is also inside the network means everything is washing machine, everything is soft. No, everything is not clean. In fact, you have to be much more careful when you are inside the network because it is a clear text access or direct access to your systems. Right? So this is something, and importantly, log all transactions, log all data, especially for network transactions, so that you can do root cause analysis and non-repetition. Software-defined perimeter, you know these concepts. One important area of software-defined perimeter is the concept of cloaking or server invisibility. Very important. Server invisibility says that your critical systems need not be exposed over the network. I'm saying even internal network, unnecessarily. Hide it behind, put in jump server, put in some gateway server, put in some cloaking mechanism or shielding mechanism, so that only genuine traffic can pass through. So layers of defense, right? It's like you go to any army facility, training facility, you go to any other training facility of services for defense, etc. You'll notice high walls on the end, on the surrounding the campus. Very high walls with barbed wire fencing. 2 purposes. One, nobody should be able to climb. Second, nobody should be able to see the layout of inside, who sits where, etc., so that no attack can be planned. There's the whole concept of software-defined perimeter. There is an initiating host that is typically our laptops, our desktops, we users. There is an accepting host, which is your critical applications, which are willing to serve you data. And there has to be a policy engine, a centralized access management engine at the network layer, not at the application layer, at the network layer, which defines in a software manner who can access which application, on which port, from which machine, when, how long, all those things. Right? A policy-based control or access-based management needs to be done centrally. First, control plane, authentication, authorization has to be satisfied. Only then data plane has to be activated. Very important. And for that, what we have done in the controller itself, we have added in a private permission blockchain. It's not a shared blockchain. The dedicated blockchain instance sits on the customer's network itself to do 2 things. One, tamper-proof, right? So you can create a digital identity which cannot be tampered with, and you can embed that into the device. So you know now the same device is coming. And second, log immutability, right? The logs that are generated, you can store here in this blockchain so that no malware attack or ransomware attack can come and clean out the logs. This is something that we have done as part of our solution. Just an overview. After this, I'll just show you a small demo of how the solution works. And then maybe we'll take some a use case and then questions. What we have achieved here is what ideally you would have done with about 4 or 5 different solutions. What we are doing here is before you can access your network, we are putting a system in place which is network agnostic. It sits on top of your network. So we are not touching your network at all. Whatever network you may have, as long as it is reachable, we will sit on top of that and we will make sure security is agnostic to that network. Very important distinction. Unfortunately, network security has been driven by networking vendors, appliance vendors who make networking devices, firewalls, routers, switches, etc., etc. They were the primary drivers who made security equipment also, and security software, etc., was also bundled with it. So for us, it has been ingrained in us that network and security are intertwined. No, network is for connectivity, IP to IP, IPv4, IPv6, internet, right? Lease line, dial-up, hotspot, broadband, LAN, WAN, so many different types of networks. SD-WAN, so many different types of networks. Security solutions should be ingrained in all of them, or should sit as a cap on top of them, as an overlay on top of all of that, so that when you have a multi-network, like a distributed network, like a multi-cloud, hybrid cloud, and environment, you don't have to put multiple silos and hope and pray that they work together. One common network, one common solution that sits on top of, like a spider or like an octopus, it sits on top of everything that you have with a centralized brain and ensures that appropriate communication is guaranteed. So zero trust network principle, the very important capability of server invisibility, where critical servers are hidden from the network so that malware, ransomware, whatever where, cannot directly sniff or do a reconnaissance kind of an attack. Very important. Typically, that's how MITRE, if you study the MITRE framework, one of the first things that happen is any unknown tool or zero-day attack tool, first thing it will try to do is do what is called as reconnaissance, scanning, port scanning. First, it will do IP scanning, then it will do port scanning, identify which systems are visible, what application ports are visible. Then it will look into its arsenal and see what payloads do I have for these ports. Then it will craft an attack and attack. Okay, very important. When you do server invisibility, till that traffic has been authenticated, authorized, etc., etc., that entire server is invisible. And after authentication, authorization also, only that particular port on which that application is listening is available. That also, what we do in server invisibility, we put a gateway in front, like a jump server in front. What is exposed on the net or the network is a jump server. What is exposed, I'll show you, is a port, proprietary port to the jump server. If your application is a 80 port application, web application, or 443 port application, that is not exposed on the net. What is exposed on the net or network, even internal for that matter, is my invisibility gateway that I have installed in front of your critical servers, and one port called 6060, which is a proprietary black box kind of a port. Now, what I'm able to do is encrypt using RSA 4096-bit packets, not forming a tunnel. Unlike VPN and other such traditional techniques, no tunnel, no public IP to be given here, corporate IP to be given there, none of those rackets, which are exploited by malware. No split tunneling business, etc. Packets are encrypted, sent over, packets are validated. Only if the policy allows them, then those packets are transferred back to the critical server that needs to process them. Otherwise, we've built in an inbuilt multi-factor authentication engine. So SMS, OTP, email-based OTP, and today's QR code-based authenticators, Google Authenticator, Microsoft Authenticator, so Google QR code-based soft tokens, those are also supported for multi-factor authentication of the person. We have built in a digital device identity capability for the devices that the person will use. We have implemented a posture check, which is a capability of NAC. That we have implemented here. Now, unlike traditional NAC tools, which only work in your internal network because they're tied to a switch, we are doing it as a software-defined NAC at your endpoint, at the client software itself. And only when you meet all these criteria will an encrypted session be allowed. And that encryption, like I said, 4096. Now, because I'm doing this all at source, then it doesn't matter to me what is the network I am going to connect into my destination. It is irrespective. I'm agnostic to all of that. I sit as an overlay. I can work with any network that you have. You don't need to do any network changes or security changes. So this is something that I have. 3 components, controller software, which I will show you now, and a lightweight nano agent, which sits on the kernel of the operating system. It can work on Mac, it can work on Linux also, it can work on Windows also. Primarily, we work for Windows. And on the server side, in front of a critical applications, almost like a stateful application firewall or like a jump server, we put one VM, like a black box, which receives all the traffic, decides whether the policy allows or not, and only then passes that along. And you can use this for a remote access use case to replace your existing VPN, which is vulnerable. Or you can use it for flexi working. You can use it for internal compliant access. So many different cloud, multi-cloud access, so many use cases. See, multi-cloud is a very good use case. Azure uses different virtualization techniques. AWS uses different virtualization techniques. Their firewall gateway is different. AWS firewall gateway is different. Having a same VPN client will not work. You don't have a VPN client that will be able to connect to both AWS and Azure at the same time. Simultaneously not possible. We will be able to do it here because we are not forming a tie. We are doing zero trust network access, which is packet encryption. Okay. So let me just pause here, take you to a demo. Then we'll maybe take some questions. So this is the dashboard of my software, right? So typically, let me just enlarge it for you. So this is just a visual representation. So unless there is a policy like this, which says Ravi Vaz from this particular laptop can access this particular resource only on these ports. But very importantly, protected behind this gateway. Right? Only when I have a policy like this will I have access. So if I'm your friend, okay, or you are my friend, I said, you want to connect, please take this software. Please take my credentials. Or I'm an internal administrator, I'll create credentials also for you. Go. But if there is no policy like this, you cannot access. Very important. Policy-based access to wherever. So for example, I have an application BA Vault 2. It's running out of, I think, Google Cloud somewhere. I have another application called BA Vault that also is running out of somewhere else. Now, if you look at this person called Amol, he is an administrator. So he needs dual access, business port access as well as administrator access. Now he has been given that access. Me, if I try to access SSH port 22, I will not be allowed to access. So this is in fact the visual representation of the policy. So if I have to show you the policy, there are 2 types of policies that we have. One is a posture checking policy. First, I will integrate with AD, or I can create local users for your authentication. So that's one thing I can do. Right? Once authentication is done, parallelly remember my blockchain-based digital identity is getting authenticated in the mutual authentication in the background. Now, user and device, okay, both have got authenticated. So I have created a user device kind of pairing here in the system. So this is an authorized system only. So if anybody misses this authorization, so either I am a different user using somebody else's laptop or desktop, or some other type of fraud is happening, or some other misuse is happening, it will get blocked because it is not meeting the basic requirement. This user from this device has access to this application. That's the policy. Okay. Now, after you have given that access, I want to make sure that the machine is meeting the baseline of the organization. So this is the capability of posture checking, right? Which this is the capability of posture checking, which typically comes in your NAC. But for that, you have to do a lot of investment in network switches upgrade and all of that. So here, what we are able to do, let me just show you. We are able to do multiple checks. You can check whether the machine is a Windows machine or a Mac machine. We can put a policy set, any Windows 10 or Windows 11 only can allow. Everything else denied, right? You can put KB numbers of Microsoft's most critical patches. For example, you've given somebody a laptop to use. 15 days that guy has kept it at home, done nothing. Suddenly out of the blue, he opens it up and now he wants access to your critical systems. What has happened? He's out of patch, right? He's out of sync, right? Very dangerous. What we can do is we can put the latest KB numbers here in this policy and make sure that unless this KB number is installed as part of auto update, you will not be allowed to access. you can have a list of authorized antivirus solutions that the person can use. Especially in a BYOD scenario, this becomes very important. You said BYOD, that means he just buys one laptop from the shop. That vendor, that shopkeeper has maybe tied up with McAfee or Trend Micro or whatever. That antivirus is there. But your corporate antivirus is semantic. So now, BYOD karna hai, you have to be able to give access to all these kind of environments as well. So you can create a list. You can check whether firewall status is on. You can check whether the machine belongs to your domain. It's your corporate issued machine. It belongs to your partner's domain, corporate, or it's a work group machine. Right? You can check for hidden file name. You can check for registry keys, etc., etc. You can do many such checks like that. You can create local users and have a very strong password policy as per your AD password policy. Yes. You can do all of that. The next thing that you can do is you will write an access policy. Now, this is the most important heart of the thing. Again, if you notice, no coding, no reg key, nothing. Everything is dropped down. What I said, this user and this device combination, I can also create groups, okay, can access this particular resource, right, through this gateway, right, this kind of a gateway. Now, so this acts like a jump server. If I want, I can always have a secondary gateway as well, right, so prevent any resiliency issues, etc. So now, remember, let me show you policies that I have. I have a couple of policies associated with me. Two policies that are there, BA Vault and BA Vault 2. Please pay attention to this IP address of the server, 3.228. Now, one of the first things like I told you, is that I am network agnostic. So I have installed my software, client software, etc. But look at my machine. There's only one IP address on my machine, which is my broadband IP address. Nothing more, nothing less. No additional IP address which VPN normally pulls, no virtual adapter, no headache. Now, I have a policy which says I can access these systems, etc. So it's a web-based application. Yes. Now, let me show you from a network side. If you look at my network communication that has happened, I have connected actually to a HTTP port application, one, and I've connected to an HTTP, another application of BA Vault. One is BA Vault and one is BA Vault 2. Two different web-based applications. So either I should connect at port 80 or port 443. Look at my access. There is no port 80 or 443 that has been exposed. Also remember the server that I showed you, 3.228. Can you see 3.228 anywhere? No. What do you see? 34.199.1 whatever, 194 server, port 6060. This is the concept of server invisibility. The concept of server invisibility. Your actual physical, your actual server, your actual application, SAP, name any TCP application, will not be exposed even on your LAN. So malware, ransomware, any such things that are trying to do the reconnaissance-based attacks, prevented there and there. Okay. And obviously, once you do all of this, the logs are available. Everything is there. Logs are giving you an access of who accessed, where, etc. Everything is available. The logs are in the format, ArcSight and all those, which are a CEF format, common event format. So everything is already supported. So I pause here with, let me see what else. Want to burden you all with too much. Yeah, I pause here. I think now, Sejal, I think you should get into questions. Okay, so let me start from top. Okay. Okay, so first Viral has asked okay, Abhishek has asked, how do you trust the genuineness of a device? Right. So genuineness of a device can be trusted in the OT, especially using the digital identity kind of point. So how do you do it is in OT scenario, you embed some identifier from your side. So today, people are using SSL certificates and other such mechanisms to do device identification for OT devices. But primarily, what you should be able to do is build some form of digital. So we do using blockchain. So we create this very small key or certificate or whatever you may call it, which we add into the device, which becomes the tamper-proof identifier for that device. So every time traffic comes along, it comes along with that identifier. That is something that we do. Inherent application and solution risks are always there. Yes. So that is where surface area reduction can be done by a ZTN vendor like us. Because we do software-defined perimeter, because we do server invisibility, we are able to reduce the attack surface. So you can't see the server. If you can't see the server, you can't reconnaissance it, you can't scope it, you can't attack it. Right? But very importantly, zero trust architecture is not only about network access. There is more. So that's if you look at the zero trust architecture paper by NIST, so there is a networking access, that is one domain. There is zero trust from an endpoint perspective. There is zero trust from an application perspective. How applications need to speak to each other, how IDAM solutions need to work from a zero trust perspective, and from a monitoring and measuring perspective also. So zero trust architecture is very comprehensive, right? What we today are exposed to in India and worldwide, primarily zero trust network access. That's only one domain out of so many, right? Because almost all the primary firewall vendors, security vendors are talking about zero trust. Everybody says, I am zero trust. I have zero trust in some form or the other. Everybody's saying, right? But the chances are that they're not truly zero trust. Even if they are, they're taking their data towards themselves in their cloud, shared service infrastructure, then passing it back, etc. It's not a very good scenario. How do you define managed and so Sunita asked, how do you define managed and unmanaged devices in BYOD scenario? So that is where you use the posture check capability. In the posture check capability for a managed device, there is a certain environmental baseline that you have set. Windows 10 patches, this particular brand of antivirus, this particular domain membership, etc., etc., etc. So there are some registry key entries, some software that you put as file name you can check. That is when you can identify and define that, okay, this is a managed device. This is my device. I have authorized this device. The other option is somebody uses his personal machine, but you have to authorize him for that as well. It is not that he just uses it ad hoc. He brings it, takes your permission as an IT administrator, sir, I want to use this. We put a digital identity from blockchain there, tamper-proof there, and he can now use only that. He cannot just ad hoc use any device. So that is how typically we do it, and that is a good way to do it. Use a digital identity mechanism for this. So InstaSafe. So Pankaj has asked how different is it from InstaSafe. We are almost similar, right, to InstaSafe, but InstaSafe has moved on into other. I think they have added a lot more other capabilities in the security side of things. The actual access part of things, the secure access, multi-cloud, hybrid cloud kind of access, etc. I think that is plus posture check and multi-factor authentication and etc. Those kind of features, etc., which we have embedded into our operating into our solution. That I think they don't have a very strong version of that as yet. Blockchain, we are using a private permissioned Ethereum blockchain instance, but importantly, no crypto is shared with any of the Ethereum vendor or with us. It is a dedicated instance for that customer's infrastructure, which can be installed in the customer's data center or in the customer's cloud. All we need is, I think, 2 or 3 VMs, not more, for the entire solution to work. 2 VMs for 4 VMs, 2 VMs for the controller, primary and HA, and 2 VMs for the gateway itself. So there's a question that somebody has asked there. What about the gateway? Right, a single point of failure? No, we have a HA gateway capability, which I showed you also in this in the configuration. So that is also available. So if the primary gateway is not available for access, immediately the packet will be retried on the HA gateway and access will be granted to the end user. So from the next question is from Gokulavan, right? Machine identity. No, so right now we in the present version we have not built that capability to do a asset discovery or asset assessment, etc. We have not done that. Whether it's hardened or whatever. How we do is we do some posture checks. We check whether the machine is encrypted. We check antivirus is in place, whether the latest patches are there, etc. That is the way we do currently, right? We don't actually do an assessment, run a tool, create a posture profile, etc. We don't do that currently. We may be doing it some sort of an asset discovery, etc., which will pass on to centralized management tool, etc. Gaurav has asked about performance overhead. We are using zero trust. We are doing packet encryption compared to tunnel-based IPsec encryptions. So obviously response times are better, right? Especially over the internet or over a lesser bandwidth, performance times are better. It's light, okay? RSA 4096 bit, AES 256 bit, TLS 1.2. These are latest standards, light, lean standards, which are used for encryption. No bulky security mechanisms are put in place as part of this solution. Right? How do you ensure jump server doesn't become single point of failure? I've already answered you there. Right? We have HA at each layer. Right? So at the gateway layer, at the software layer, I have HA. So if I have to from a solution architecture perspective, we will share this presentation across with you, right? So the important part that we notice is when you speak to your senior management or you speak to your customers as partners, as consultants, what you are going to offer is secure access, reduced surface area, right? And from a risk management perspective, finally, every business is about trust versus risk, right? We are preventing the risk of unauthorized access, unauthorized user accessing, unauthorized device getting used to access. We are reducing the attack surface for malware and ransomware. Because we are not doing tunnels, right? We are not giving bridging capabilities to malware and ransomware, which may have infected a zero-day attack that may have infected your laptops and desktops. So malware ransomware propagation is reduced. And in the end, very importantly, network is just a layer underneath. Security is sitting on top separately as an agnostic layer. So the endpoint actually doesn't become part of the corporate network. You saw that in my machine. I don't have a corporate IP that has been given to me, even though that I am connected. So this is something that we were able to achieve. So I pause here. Sejal, you can take it forward from here for this. I just check. Let me just check if somebody else has. Okay. No, I think they are asking for the Kahoot codes. So Sejal, go ahead. I am muting myself now. You can take it forward from there.
Hi, Ravi. Thank you. Great session. Everyone was really into it, it seems. So I hope you, had a great time here, Ravi. We really, enjoyed it. So thank you for that. And Ravi, you're on mute.
I just said thank you. Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay, so with that, I hope you all have just a minute. Okay, just a minute. I believe there is some echo going on. I'm not sure why.
Somebody will be on. Somebody's maybe on two devices. Somebody would be on two devices.
Okay. So I hope you all have enjoyed listening to this session, and we have an upcoming Kahoot quiz. So just stay tuned for that. And I hope you all have filled the form that was put in the chat box, and you will receive a participation certificate once you fill the form. So please do that, and give me a minute to set up the Kahoot quiz, and we will just begin shortly. Okay, so I'll just put the link here in the chat box. You just have to go to this website and enter the game pin that is on the screen. And we will just wait for 2 to 3 minutes. So I request everyone to please join up quickly so that we can begin with the quiz. I hope you all were attentive since this quiz will be dependent on the presentation. And I hope, Ravi sir, you have not joined this quiz. Okay.
No.
Okay. Okay, so you just have to go to www.kahoot.it and enter the game pin that is on the screen, or else you can scan the QR, the code that is on the screen. And this quiz basically is a fastest finger first kind of quiz. So you just have to be quick with your answers. The questions will be, of course, MCQ based. And yeah, 2 more minutes and then we'll start. So the top 3 winners of this quiz gets Amazon Kindles. And also there is one more chance for you to win some Cyberfrat goodies, so which will be after the quiz. So, okay, a lot of people joining in, I can see. Okay, 1 more minute. Okay, last 30 seconds. And okay, I see still some people are joining. So, okay, last 10 seconds, then we'll start. And okay, so let's start. Okay, so good luck, everyone. Okay, here is the first question. What is the encryption used by Block Armour Secure Shield? You can see the options on your screen. And okay, so keep an eye on the timer that is on the left side of the screen. Okay, I think we have all the answers. Okay, let's see who is winning on the scoreboard. Okay, Mr. Pankaj is at the top. Karishma, I see you are, again in the winning streak. So, what feature ensures access only from trusted and compliant devices? I hope you all can see the screen because Lokesh, I'm not sure if it's the issue is from your end or. Okay, thank you, Manoj sir. Okay, so Mr. Pankaj is still at the top, followed by Anish and Dr. Naresh. Okay, so the third question is which feature reduces attack surface area of critical apps against reconnaissance attacks by zero-day malware ransomware? So there are total 6 questions. You have 2 more questions left, so you can be on the top of the scoreboard if you aren't yet. Okay. Okay, I think the first position is still the same. And the fourth question is, what does the term zero trust signify? I think this is an easy one. Okay, good. Okay, I see Anish Sharma has topped the scoreboard. And the fifth question is which technology is not available currently in Block Armour Secure Shield. Okay, a few close answers that we got. And Dr. Naresh K is at the top as of now. And I believe we have one last question left. So, which IT use case is supported by Block Armour Secure Shield? So, guys, this will be the deciding question. So, let's see who makes it to the top three. Okay, good. Most of you got that right. Okay, the podium looks like Gaurav Saxena. Congratulations. You're at the Anish Sharma. Congratulations for winning. And at the top first position, we have Dr. Naresh K. Congratulations to all the winners. Good job. The team will get in touch with you for the address details. Thank you for participating in the quiz. Okay, so that with that we are just left with one Wheel of Fortune for the people who have filled the feedback form, and we'll just get it done right away. So I request my team to please share the screen. Okay, so let's spin the wheel. There will be one winner from this Wheel of Fortune. Oh, congratulations, Mr. Akhilesh. Thank you for letting us know your feedback, and I hope you have got your certificate as well. And with that, of course, the team will get in touch with you for the gifting details. And yes, with that, thank you so much for joining. I hope you are enjoying these sessions every Wednesday. Please let us know your feedback through the forms that we put in. Any requests or any topics that you want us to cover, anything feedback related, just put in the forms. And yes, see you next Wednesday and have a good day.